Welcome. Welcome. Welcome to Vanadium. I'm Chris Rankin. The more I learn about this mad world, the more mysterious it seems. No creatures on the planet demonstrate the power of organization and hierarchy quite like ants. They exemplify structure, order, and division of labor. Ants construct their own cities, collect and store resources, build nurseries and care for their young. Just like humans, ants dominate and transform their environment. They show altruistic behavior, helping one another, demonstrating a respect for duty, even collecting and burying their dead. Ants do this as a sanitary measure to prevent disease or infection from spreading throughout the colony. It turns out this important task is performed by specially designated undertaker ants, who have some anatomical differences from the rest of the colony and are best suited for their occupation. This is just one example of how many ant species will have certain members of the colony with specialized features for certain tasks. Ants lead individual lives, but they're deeply and inextricably connected. An ant is separate, but in a way, not really an ant without the colony. Ants don't just construct dwellings to live and raise young. They can actually become the housing for the colony. Army ants don't build a nest like most other ants. Instead, they build a living residence with their own bodies, known as a bivouac. The members of the bivouac hold on to each other's legs and build what resembles a ball of ants, which may look unstructured to the untrained eye, but is actually a well-organized piece of architecture. At the smallest disturbance, soldiers gather on the top surface of the bivouac, ready to defend the nest. Inside the walls of ants, there are numerous passages designated as chambers for food, larvae, eggs, and perhaps most importantly, the queen. Another species of ant is capable of taking construction even further. Fire ants are known to form their own navy when they face a puddle or stream. They can clump into a floating raft when they encounter a body of water, and will transport other members of the colony to dry land. Ant colonies have a complex hierarchical social structure. All ant jobs are determined, but the role can change as the ant ages. Younger ants typically work within the nest, protecting the queen and young. Despite the title of queen, she doesn't delegate the tasks to the worker ants. Instead, the ants choose their roles and responsibilities based on personal preference as well as social pressure. Ants can compare geographical areas and solve complex problems by using information gained by each member of the colony in order to locate the best nesting sites or to find food. Ants as a colony also work as a collective supermind, demonstrating the properties of an emergent phenomenon. Emergence occurs when an entity is observed to have properties its parts do not have on their own. Properties or behaviors which emerge only when the parts interact in a wider whole. The emergent is unlike its components and cannot be reduced to their sum or their difference. Ants are a formidable force of nature. We can learn a lot about ourselves by looking at the ways ants construct their societies. Ant colonies are well-oiled machines, the example of perfect working order, form, and function. Human cities have some of the same qualities as ant colonies. The structure of human society itself bears some resemblance as well. However, sometimes an ant society faces a problem when it plays follow the leader. Perfect organization, perfect hierarchies just aren't perfect. In nature, things happen, things break down. The organized structure of any civilization can also be its downfall. When the ant colony is on the move, as the first ant in line travels, it leaves behind a chemical pheromone trail that the other ants sniff out and follow. When this system works well, it allows foraging parties to quickly and efficiently lead larger groups back to food and other resources. When it doesn't work, when something goes wrong, the ants follow these pheromone trails as they flow back into themselves. The ants end up in an endless loop that they follow to their doom. If the circle isn't broken for some reason, they can never escape. The ants are caught in a death spiral. The phenomenon was first observed in insects in 1910 by the scientist W.M. Wheeler in his laboratory. He wrote, "I have never seen a more astonishing exhibition of the limitations of instinct. For nearly 2 whole days, these blind creatures, so dependent on the contact odor sense of their antennae, kept palpating their uniformly smooth, odoriferous trail and the advancing bodies of the ants immediately preceding them, without perceiving that they were making no progress, but only wasting their energies, till the spell was finally broken by some more venturesome members of the colony." As Frederick Del Soup wrote in PLOS Biology in 2003, "All army ant species share the qualities of collective foraging, nomadic living, and wingless queens that can produce vast quantities of young. These morphological and behavioral similarities enforce their collective behavior, with individual ants unable to survive on their own. While evolution gave the ants a successful strategy to survive as a group, it may have also left them with remnant behavior, a pathological behavior that can be seen as the footprints left by the evolutionary trajectory in which these ants have been trapped. When it comes to the death spiral, it would take just one single individual ant to go the other way, to break the cycle." An ant mill was described by William Beebe in 1921, who observed a mill 1,200 feet or 370 meters in circumference. It took each ant 2.5 hours to make one revolution. Beebe went on to describe the circular mill he witnessed in Guyana. The mill persisted for 2 days, with ever-increasing numbers of dead bodies littering the route as exhaustion took its toll. But eventually, a few workers straggled from the trail, thus breaking the cycle. In 1936, ant biologist T.C. Schnierle came across a mill of several hundred ants that lasted for an entire day. Even a heavy rain did not stop them. By the next day, most of them were dead, although a few continued to circle close to death. He wrote about the mill and its aftermath in a 1944 paper describing the experience. "On the spot of yesterday's phenomenon, little or no circling is to be seen. The entire area is strewn with the bodies of the dead and dying. A few of the survivors wander about slowly, while no more than 36 of them form a small and rather irregular circular column in which they plod around slowly, counterclockwise. Interestingly, other members of the nearby ant species made use of their fallen comrades. Various small myrmecine and dolichodaran ants of the neighborhood are busy carting away the dead. Although the largest ant mill ever observed was hundreds of feet across, most are just a few inches or a foot across and comprise just a few dozen ants." Noted insect photographer Alex Wild wrote about the phenomenon on his blog a few years ago. "I used to see ants all the time when I lived in Paraguay, and not just in the field. Army ants have no qualms about raiding through rural houses, and I'd come home to find circles of ants whirling about on tops of my plates in the kitchen, and sometimes find intimate rings of 5 to 6 ants on a coffee mug." Ants are not alone facing this problem. Other social creatures can suffer the same fate. Similar destructive behavior has been observed in processionary caterpillars and schools of fish. Human society doesn't seem immune from the death spiral syndrome. The story of what can happen to ants contains a ring of familiarity to me. What if everyone just follows the leader? What if everyone is just doing their job? We would be in the middle of a death spiral ourselves. If that's true, there's only one solution, and it's the same for humans as it is for ants. The solution is for individuals to wake up and step out of the cycle. Thank you very much. I'm Chris Rankin, and this was Vanadium.